Indiana Republicans are a bunch of dullards. They cannot write a proper bill to save their life, and have written this very dumb bill as a result. This bill will try to block minors from accessing social media. The claimed reason behind this is to protect the quote-unquote mental health of minors. This is being claimed in remarkably bad faith, but I will get to that in a bit. To address the presumed claim of caring about children, there is no universe where you can convince me that Republicans give a shit about minors. Republicans literally spent all of last year trying to strip labor protections away from minors. The one that stands out to me the most is from Louisiana, where a legislator who owned a bunch of fast food restaurants wanted to repeal a legal requirement for minors to get a short break after working 5 hours. The sponsor of the bill justified it by saying minors were actually more mature than you think, and don't need breaks.
And the other thing, I use the word young adults, and I'm going to clarify. I coached, and any high school coach that I've ever dealt with has used the word young adults instead of old kids. I treated my children and I treat my team members as capable young adults, or pre-adults, pick your word.
You see, pre-adults don't need labor protections. They're actually very mature for their age. They yearn for the mines. Not those mines, actual mines. So no, I don't believe Republicans when they yammer on about protecting children. This video is about SB 11 in Indiana, the social media ban. First, we're going to start off by going through the bill. It's badly written and everyone associated with it should be embarrassed. Next, we're going to talk about the intended impacts of the bill and how it's supposed to work. And at the end, we're going to talk about the very real and creepy motivation behind the bill. And since the thumbnail for this video clickbaited a Fortnite ban, let's start there. During a recent hearing on the bill, the author of this bill and another legislator bantered back and forth about whether Fortnite would be covered by this bill.
The definition of social media has been changed to read a website or other internet-based application that allows a person to create an account or profile to communicate or interact with others. The term does not include a user's sole purposes of interactive gaming. So you exclude interactive gaming, right? Which is like Fortnite and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, we don't. It's
Okay,
primarily meant for gaming activity.
Well, that would include things like Fortnite and all those other applications where there's guns, there's death, there's...
I believe you have to buy that though, don't you? Or is that free? I think you got to pay for that. So
Yeah,
if you're paying for it as a kid, you don't have. I mean, if you don't have a credit card, you can't buy access to Fortnite or some of this other stuff. So in that case, I mean, your parents already taking responsibility for it. I mean, unless your parents wants to give you a credit card or authorize you to have a debit card, but then they got to sign for your banking. So I see your point because I had the same concerns too. So
I don't think you have to pay for, you could pay for different apps that you get within there, but to be on the site, I don't think you do. Are you concerned about the fact that young people would still have access to these gaming sites? That can be violent. Let me finish, please. That could be violent and other things.
That's a different topic. I mean, I mean, you want my personal opinion? That's not in the bill. I mean, my personal opinion is different, but that doesn't fall under the definition of social media.
We'll get to all that, but I will point out that nowhere in this bill does it disqualify a website from being social media because you have to purchase something. Requiring purchases is a non-issue to being considered social media, according to this bill. Anyway, it sounds like he really knows his stuff, or as he said at the hearing,
you know, I'm not a lawyer, and, you know, I'm not an IT person. I've got a lot of IT experience.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, whoops. I guess we'll have to read the bill for ourselves to find out what it says. To quote directly, social media means a website or other internet-based application that allows a person to create an account or profile to communicate or interact with other users and create content, share content and information, or 3, view content and information that is shared by other users. You may notice this is a very broad definition. Does it include Fortnite? Well, it hits the top line definition, as you definitely need to create an account and you do share information and interact with other users over a microphone, so it checks that box. What about the other 3 criteria? 1, you can create content on Fortnite, building islands and whatnot. 2, you can share content because you can share those islands, putting them on sale. And 3 is a little iffy to me because I'm not familiar enough with Fortnite. To get into the exact wording here, view content and information that is shared by other users. I'm reading this definition as you are not the initial creator, but are still sharing it. In other words, a first person creates content, a second person receives it, and turns around and shares it with you on the same platform. I can't say for certain whether Fortnite fits this definition. I'd say that it is immaterial, however, because connecting the three requirements is the word "or," indicating one of two things. Either the social media site in question only has to hit one definition of these three, or it only has to hit one and one of the last two. Either way, I believe Fortnite has qualified as a social media platform. Now, the sponsor did mention a large number of exceptions to this law, including one that excludes video games directly, so let's look at that. A user accesses for the sole purpose of interactive gaming. They don't define interactive gaming, which is probably for the best on their end, considering how broad the social media definition ended up being. And again, while I'm not an expert on Fortnite, I'm not certain it counts as a 100% interactive gaming experience. For example, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker event in Fortnite isn't really a gaming experience, as the only interactivity was voting in a poll, which, if that's what we're counting as gameplay, then every social media website is technically interactive gaming, and thus immune to this bill. This is just one example. Performances by musicians like Snoop Dogg, Ice Spice, Ariana Grande, and Travis Scott further strip away at the idea that playing Fortnite is a 100% gaming experience. To bring this down to a more micro and annoying level, what about this guy? Is he on there for the sole purpose of interactive gaming?
Sorry, this is my friend. He's a little loud. Get off my
Is this
face.
Dr. Winnesser, the actual Dr. Winnesser?
It is the actual Dr. Winnesser, yeah.
Wait.
I'm checking his stream. Dude, you don't know who Dr. Winnesser is? He teaches people about the Bible and the gospel and stuff.
Exactly. I go into Fortnite and teach people about the Bible. So you get,
Wait, what do you do?
I go into Fortnite and I teach people about the gospel.
Because I'd say no. I'd say he's on there to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. Because I'd say no. I'd say there is a social aspect besides that interactive gaming experience, not just for Dr. Witnesser. So the gaming exception wouldn't apply in my opinion because it is too narrowly tailored, regardless of what this non-expert says. Now, why did I just spend an inordinate amount of time proving this social media bill applies to Fortnite, when Fortnite in the general sense shouldn't be understood as social media? Well, there's a difficulty in translating a general understanding of what something is to what it is legally defined as. As in, we can rattle off what social media is: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, etc., but legally defining it is kinda hard. This is best illustrated in the 1964 Supreme Court case of Jacob Ellis versus Ohio. In it, Justice Potter Stewart wrote a famous opinion that illustrates the difficulties of translating a general understanding to a legal understanding, in this case talking about obscenity. To quote, "I shall not today attempt further to define the kinds of material I understand to be embraced within that shorthand description, and perhaps I could never succeed in intelligibly doing so. But I know it when I see it, and the motion picture involved in this case is not that." The case itself was about an award-winning romantic French film, which seems a little broad to enforce an obscenity statute about. Which brings us back to Fortnite. No, it is most certainly not what the writers of this bill had in mind when writing this bill, but just because Fortnite isn't what they had in mind doesn't mean they won't use this law against it, if and when the need arises. I'm pretty sure the writers of the Ohio obscenity law didn't have a movie by the guy who would go on to direct My Dinner with Andre as one of their targets, but that's how it got used anyway. So if Fortnite is included in this bill's purview, then it must be a very large purview. And it is. The amount of shit that could be included under this bill is enormous. The most insane example I could think of was Wikipedia. You create an account, you can create content, and you can share them, i.e. Wikipedia entries. There's also an exception for email providers that quote-unquote facilitates only electronic mail, but you know, that's also super narrow. If a provider does anything else other than provide only electronic mail, that exception is burnt. I'm talking about Gmail. Gmail is covered under this law because it does a lot of other stuff like Google Docs and Sheets. Once you start trying to define who is covered by this law, it quickly becomes clear the answer is most places. Most everywhere on the internet is covered by this stupid bill. What's really funny is the guy who wrote this bill thinks he knocked it out of the park and wrote a really narrow definition of what social media is.
the definition we had was what, about 8 words? It was pretty vague. So we worked with the other stakeholders to try to come together and get a definition. So we were trying to get in the right space. Remember, this is a space. It's not content driven. This is a space that we're trying to define because we know what it is. It's just how do you explain it and make sure that you don't pick up LinkedIn or Salesforce or an app that you communicate between yourself and your partners. We don't want to do that.
Respectfully, how the fuck would LinkedIn not be covered by this? I'm not even going to go through it. This is prima facie stupid. His previous definition of social media was even worse. An internet web page or other form of electronic communication through which users create or use online communities to share information. This covers the entire internet, not just most of it, like the new one does. So technically he's improved, but not functionally. Now that we've established the bill's definition essentially includes most of the working internet, what does it do? The sponsor says it bans people who are 15 and under from using social media without parental permission, but that's not entirely accurate. The law itself says a social media operator must not allow a minor user to view social media without obtaining verifiable parental consent, allowing the minor user to view the social media. Which seems rather obvious what it means, but upon further reading of the bill, there's nothing there that does that. If this bill passes, it becomes what to do when a minor who doesn't have parental consent is found. In the bill, it says, social media platforms have 90 days to boot them off and provide documentation. So in other words, the bill says don't let minors on social media preemptively, but as a whole only provides for kicking them off social media after they've already been on social media, which doesn't seem terribly effective at preventing young people from getting on social media. In fact, it seems more like a method for parents to cancel their children's social media accounts after the fact, which is what I think the bill is going for. And before we go any further, the unintended consequences of this bill could be huge. Because while most social media sites will probably slap a checkbox for I am over 18 on them, that's not a guarantee for all of them by any means. It is entirely within the realm of possibility that certain social media websites will start requiring identification if they somehow come to believe you might be 15 or younger. Which, fuck that. So while the consequences of the bill are theoretical at this particular point, I'd personally prefer they were a little more concrete in the bill. Especially since their definition of social media includes most internet services. Now let's strike upon the heart of the matter. Why does this exist? If you listen to the author of the bill, it's to protect children.
So Senate Bill 11, we're going to try to do with this is to limit the access of kids to social media when they're under the age of 15. So 15 and under kids is what we're looking at here. The real reason, though, is why are we doing this? We're not trying to regulate content of what's going on the various social media sites. That's not what we're trying to do. We're looking to see is just the fact that social media itself, regardless of the content that's inside of it, is that in and of itself creating the mental health issues that we're having right now with a lot of our kids? And I believe that's what it is.
Sure, totally believable from a certain perspective. See, when conservatives bang the drum on the cause of protect the children, it's rarely to protect the children. Remember Roger Wilder, the guy who earlier was attacking labor protections for minors and calling them pre-adults? If you don't, here's a couple more clips of him talking about how mature 16-year-olds are.
I think our young adults, because when I hear the word minor, I think of an 8 or a 9-year-old. When I hear 16 and 17-year-old, I think of a young adult. I believe that our young adults can make decisions without a babysitter. The emancipation age is 16. You're allowed to marry at 16. You're allowed to drive at 16. Those are all adult actions.
Super comfortable listening to a guy who wants to cut labor protections for minors talking about how 16-year-olds are ready to get married. Anyway, while Roger was cutting labor protections for minors, he was also the sponsor of one of those bathroom bills that ban trans boys and girls from using the restroom in public schools. He sounds great, doesn't he? Incidentally, I didn't Photoshop that little flyer down there, the one that looks like Roger is just the world's biggest creep who spies on girls' locker rooms. That's something his team personally put together to make him look good. Anyway, what is the point of SB 11? Why does it exist? Well, mental health. And by mental health, I mean they don't like LGBTQ people and think it's a mind virus spread by social media. That may sound a little far-fetched, but let me walk you through it. I've dealt with conservatives all my life, and just because something is stupid does not mean it will be disqualified from the wholehearted endorsement of all conservatives. Trump. Trump. Okay, for a long time there's been a school of thought that being any of LGBTQ is communicable, as in no one is born gay, it's spread. To quote from the most reliable website for conservative thought, Quora, "Why is social media brainwashing our children and teens to the LGBTQ agenda?" And yes, Quora is also covered by this bill. To emphasize that, the recently deceased Anita Bryant was responsible for a campaign to repeal an ordinance in Miami, Florida in 1977, with claims of homosexual recruitment being on the list of reasons to repeal the ordinance. The ordinance was about discrimination in housing, so you can see how far afield claims of LGBTQ being spread like a virus can go. To bring this to a more recent example, the world's richest man. He claims that his son got the woke mind virus, and now they're trans, which is fundamentally a stupid thing to say out loud, but is exemplary of conservative parents who have children who have made choice about their sexuality they don't agree with. Now, having this piece of knowledge that LGBTQ is acquired by exposure, and also the conservative hatred of LGBTQ, I will not be taking questions on this. If you rub them together in a non-suggestive way, what do you get? The purging of all LGBTQ people from the public square, the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, book bans, and a personal favorite, the woke content detector on Steam. Yes, be careful playing the game where you can casually murder hookers. It has a few LGBTQ characters in there. Now, the social media ban for under 15s was a lot more ambitious originally, but had to be pared down because nobody is uploading their driver's license to post on social media. So it's been dropped from that to if a parent makes the request, the social media has to delete the account. And now you can kind of see the impetus behind the bill. So if a kid comes out to their parents, they'll delete their social media accounts because Instagram made them gay. Once the social media accounts are deleted, the kid will of course revert to their previously happy straight self. At least that's the theory this bill is operating on. In reality, if the kid recants, it will likely be because the parent has exerted so much control over them they have no choice. Which is kind of terrible. Your kid came out to you and you psychologically tortured them as a result. The kid, on the other hand, after having made the very difficult decision to come out to their parents, will be rewarded by having their ties to a larger LGBTQ community severed. Ta-da! Conservatives are horrible. So at the end, here's what we have for Indiana Senate Bill 11. The definition of social media is so blindingly large, it includes almost all websites. The actual effect of the bill is negligible, as it will catch almost no minors before they are allowed to access social media. And the actual purpose of the bill is to torture LGBTQ kids. I'm History Sock, and I hate all of these people.